Salutations, my friends, and thank you for tuning in to another edition of Factions of Freedom. I'm your host, Noisera, Freedom Faction, whichever one you prefer, and I have titled this episode, Revolution, Collusion, Scoring Society, and Fiascos of Our Future. Why? We have all kinds of different problems to look at in this episode, things that a lot of people kind of overlook. The epigenetic factors of things like having lead and copper in the water, atrazine in our food, atrazine in our water, and everything else. Amazon's cashless stores, China's social credit system, Google's selfish ledger, as well as Facebook's user reputation score. There's a lot of different things happening here within America as well as on the geopolitical scale. And we'll be looking at this and more in this edition. But first, before we do, I'd like to point you guys in the direction of our website. We've added over 50 new items to our store, from first aid kits to life straws to privacy shelters, water filtration, and more. We'll be adding all kinds of other products to hopefully get a gauge as to what you, the listener, and the audience would like. If you guys would like to support us in other ways, think about becoming a Patreon exclusive member. We're going to be starting to do live video episodes, as well as creating a separate page for those episodes, as well as IG transmissions. We're also beginning to upload our episodes to Real.video and more. We're growing and is thanks to the continued support that you good folks offer us. And with that being said, let's start the show.
Oh, salutations, and thank you for tuning in to another edition of Factions of Freedom. You know, when I put these episodes together, I keep trying to tell myself, no, how are they going to outdo themselves? That's not, clearly we're at enough. You know, clearly this is enough. No, it's not the case. Otherwise, you know, I wouldn't be looking at how much work we've done within the 4 years and how much more is still going on. I forgot to talk about in the previous episode, you know, how Oklahoma State Senator Ralph Shorty was sentenced to jail 15 years for being with a child. This is an Oklahoma senator. That's crazy. And so much more other stuff going on, you know. And again, I keep thinking, how much further down the rabbit hole are we going to go? Sometimes, you know, I end up having all kinds of different crazy conversations with the variety of people, you know, that are interested in these types of things. This really does reward me with the opportunity to discuss a number of different subjects, a variety of subjects with a variety of people. And it's just crazy, the perspectives. But common sense seems to be the underlying tone of people who really get what's going on. I don't understand if common sense has become consciousness or what, but, you know, this is, again, another reason why we pay attention to, you know, the whole stay woke phenomena and everything else. Definitely did not mean to intro with this, but thank you guys for tuning in to this edition of Factions of Freedom. As I said, this episode is titled Revolution, Collusion, Scoring Society, and Fiascos of Our Future. We're going to be talking about all kinds of different things. Resistance within our government. The fact that, obviously, you know, we've talked about this before, controlled opposition. People who are being paid to sow division, paid by higher-ups to go out there and cause this kind of chaos. You know, your revolution can't be paid for. If you're having paid for protesters, these things that pop up overnight, you know, you're having controlled campaigns, you're literally a puppet. We're going to be talking about that and more, as well as China's growth here, not necessarily here in America, but around the world. You know, they recently sent a peace ark, a ship, to Venezuela. And think about that, man. We've been following what's going on with Venezuela. You know, there's things happening on the geopolitical scale. Apparently, they're trying to have a coup to, you know, put somebody else in power there. There's crazy stuff going on. But what does this mean? We're seeing a political realignment, a paradigm shift, so to speak, within the political spectrums. People keep telling me I'm sounding Republican or conservative, and I just want to be rebellious and anarchistic because this stuff I don't agree with at all. But as I said before, whenever you have air quotes resistance members who are being paid for, who are being bought, is that really a resistance? How can you offer freedom as provided by Twitter, Google, Facebook, all these other outlets, mainstream media? I thought the revolution wasn't supposed to be televised. Yet, here we are. So, with that being said, I want to play for you guys a clip, right? This kind of just starts the theme of what we'll be discussing on this episode and more. Governor Jerry Brown of California made another, while talking about climate change and everything else that's going on and our responsibility to act, he kind of made a quick, statement about Trump and how he's disrupting things. Now, in previous episodes, I've talked about how California's governor, Jerry Brown, how he's gone to China to actually meet with their president, with President Xi Jinping. I thought that was very strange because it's wild. And he's even talked about it himself, Jerry Brown. He's talked about how, Trump is not an issue when it comes to climate change. And I've said again how this is just efforts or examples of how America is still in alignment with Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030. But with that being said, let's play for you guys this clip.
As we've been reporting, rescue operations are still underway in the Carolinas. Incredible flooding there. Close to 1,000 water rescues have been made in North Carolina alone. The catastrophic flooding making travel impossible in some areas, and nearly 15,000 people are already staying in 150 shelters across the state. California's Governor Jerry Brown announcing late Friday, in the face of global warming, of climate change, and of what he calls the lack of a federal response, that the state of California is going to send its own satellite into orbit to track the progress of climate change, which of course is causing hurricanes to be stronger and more severe. I talked to Jerry Brown at his Global Climate Action Summit late Friday, a gathering of state, local, and world leaders. We're in the midst of hurricanes and the aftermath of hurricanes, and you still have the President of the United States denying the science of climate change. How do you counteract that?
Well, first I want to say it's really extraordinary that the president can deny science like that. But he's done so many other what's the word? I don't even have an adjective. So it's bad, and how we counteract it is with this climate summit, with normal people respecting the truth and communicating that with other normal people and combating the President of the United States in what are lies, distortions, and quite frankly bizarre behavior. So we have to keep at it, and I'm glad you gave me a chance to answer your question, because we can't say it enough. The President is just wrong.
The hurricanes are more severe. The wildfires are more severe. The storm surge is worse because sea levels are rising. Talk to me about what we are physically experiencing here in the United States and around the world that proves that everyone who predicted that this would happen was
correct.
I
would say we're just experiencing the very early beginnings of climate change. The forest fires in California, which are worse than any other time in recorded history, it's really just, unfortunately, it's the beginning. But as the carbon builds up, and it builds up very rapidly, we'll have more drought, more fires, more storms, more intense storms, more trouble. And the worst part is more migration. We're going to have people moving from their land that will no longer produce enough food. So the world leaders have got to wake up.
Now, the exit from the Paris Climate Agreement isn't official and binding till 2020, but what is the impact already internationally of the United States having said we're out of it?
So Trump is an enabler. We often hear that term, enabler. He's an enabler of climate negligence and climate avoidance. So that's what's bad about it. Because we have to make sure that all these other countries, whether it's Russia or Poland or South America, Brazil, whatever the heck it is, everybody's got to step up. And the President of the United States should be the cheerleader, the exemplar. And instead, he's the saboteur. And that's tragic.
Here at the climate conference, you face protesters. The Democratic Party has divisions. How do you handle that? But some people say you're not even, despite your leadership on this issue, that you're not doing enough.
We're not doing enough. No one is. I do believe, though, we're doing more than anyone else, and that's not enough. So the protesters want to get the oil out of the ground, get it into the ground faster. And I think that's a noble thought. But I think what we're seeing in the protests, you're going to see more incoherent, disruptive reactions, because people are going to say, gee, if this climate change keeps going, it could be a very deteriorating world. So kids are going to react, and they're going to do whatever they can to wake everyone up. So I would take these protests as a wake-up call.
As a governor, how do you feel when the President of the United States says that nearly 3,000 people did not die in Puerto Rico, even though it was the result of a scientific study, and says that it was a Democratic conspiracy to claim all these deaths?
Well, the problem is we never had a president who is engaged in this kind of behavior. I mean, he's not telling the truth. He keeps changing his mind. He's, sabotaging the world order in many respects. So it's unprecedented. It's dangerous. And hopefully this election is going to send a strong message to the country. The Democrats will win. And then Trump, something's got to happen to this guy. Because if we don't get rid of him, he's going to undermine America and even the world.
What do Democratic candidates say in, let's say, Indiana, in West Virginia, and other states where you've got Donald Trump, when he campaigned, getting the coal miners and others to feel that this is all threatening their livelihoods?
It's a real problem. I mean, Trump won West Virginia 85%. That's real, and any politician has to deal with that. So the rest of the country has got to find ways of keeping their ambition and raising it to take climate action. But in terms of these other coal-impacted countries, we're going to have to find real dollar investments to help those people before we can say, okay, we're shutting the coal down. Well, we better have a good program.
Do you see any Democratic leaders rising up who can take on this president in 2020 if he's running, or
not yet? Not yet, but there's time. So I hope those Democrats running around will see the problem in a very sophisticated way, find the language and the issues to win over the American people. Because it's not just something you can just start talking about.
Lots of stuff there.
This is difficult because climate change is a transformation, and Trump is very clever, real animal cunning, and I don't underestimate him for a minute. So anybody who wants to run against him, they're taking on a very big challenge.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC.
Yep, sure. Thank you. So there's a whole lot of different things to look at there. You know, he went over global warming, climate change, the fact that California is launching their own satellite to monitor climate change, the fact that Governor Jerry Brown has the Global Climate Action Summit where they're watching and monitoring and trying to get people, basically the BRICS nation, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and all these other nations involved in climate action. There's a lot of different things to look at. Now, growing up in what I've considered the post 9/11 world, we are subject to things like this, all these other imaginary things that we can't see, all these other imaginary problems that are out there that require taxpayer money and require our fear and require our ability to not do crap about them. And what I mean by that is the war on terror, the war on drugs, climate change. You know, fear. You got to fear for your life. Now, when they have these predictions about climate change in my past and now my present, you've got to understand we're talking about, as I've said before, the post-geoengineering world, the post-weather modification reality. We have to understand that these people literally have the capability to control the weather. So when they say it's going to get worse, and I've talked about this, you know, with hurricanes Harvey, Irma, Maria, and Katia, what I believe we're seeing with a lot of these things is just that kind of snapback effect of persistent geoengineering on certain locations. And so now they're having to use other forms of geoengineering, cloud seeding and weather modification to combat these types of things. So there's a lot of different things to look at with that. But one of the main reasons I wanted you guys to hear that is because this is what's happening on another level, so to speak, within our country. We're being not necessarily sold out to the globalists, but you're seeing people within our own country, within our own nation, within our own government, who are colluding with other nations, other globalists, to create this new world order. As Governor Jerry Brown said right there, indeed, Trump is disrupting the new world order. Because that's what they need. They need a disruption so that they can come through as these saviors. Now, speaking of disruption, I think it's important that we talk about one of the clips that came out just last week This was a clip put out by the good folks over there at Project Veritas. They basically caught somebody saying, you know, resist at every level, F things up, cause a problem. So I'm going to play for you guys a quick clip of them, and then we'll go into this article right here from SDHF Plan. We put this up September 19th, and his name is Stuart Carafa. He's from the Department of State. Let's take a listen.
So what can be done to reform the system? Government employees need to do their jobs. His employer needs to do, his supervisor needs to do his job and examine that form.
Carafa wears his DSA sensibilities and values like a badge of honor.
Resist everything.
Everything.
Every level.
At the same time we were meeting with Carafa, this memo was posted on the Metro DC DSA website, warning their members of Project Veritas and other infiltrators. As we were wrapping up production of this report, we announced on social media the upcoming release. Within hours, the Democratic Socialists of America in DC noticed they'd be featured in the story and began ghosting their public profiles. Internal emails and their Slack channels urged members who worked for the federal government to, quote, lock down all social media accounts and activate two-factor authorization on all important accounts.
So what can be done to reform the system? Government employees.
For the record, I have no faith in the system, but I also think it's good that we have people who are trying to reform the system. I know that kind of sounds silly, but at the same time, that's how you get to look at these types of things. So what are we talking about with this Stuart Carafa, right? We're talking about federal agents, basically, people who are out there or who have infiltrated our system, our American political system, who have their own agenda. So when stuff's not getting passed, when certain bills aren't getting to where they should be, whenever funds aren't ending up where they should, we're seeing what happens with all of this type of stuff. Now, basically what you're hearing right there is just a 1-minute clip of an extraordinary expose that I would definitely recommend you guys to go check out at www.projectveritas.com/leaks. Now, the next video that I'm going to play for you guys is where we have another member of this so-called resistance within our government, right, who's paid to cause division. Let's take a listen.
Is that your job?
I have several businesses, but you know, the resistance is a really good group of people. It's spread throughout the country, probably throughout the world. I mean, it's just kind of, it's just what I enjoy spending my time doing. And of course we get paid, you know? Of course there's higher ups pay us.
So you're paid for this? It's not just like something you do because you love a country?
Yeah, I mean, people pay us, they want us to help sow the division and to take over Trump's Twitter feed. When he makes a post, they want our tweets to be up there. They don't want other people to, like, Trump supporters to be seen in that case.
Is that your job?
Now, there's a lot of different things to look at there, but I think the main thing is just that, the fact that we have this resistance, so to speak, operating. Now, I'll be driving around and I see stickers all the time. People that have the resist. I get this. I get this. Our country's in a very, very delicate spot right now, though. You know, I understand, having political adversaries, people that you don't really agree with. Our country, though, is kind of in a very delicate spot. And this whole nationalism, I think, idea that we're going through right now, it's really kind of exposing some of our demons within America. So when you have all this tension going through, when you have people who are doing this controlled opposition, this destruction, this division, all these different types of things, you've got to really understand that this is guerrilla warfare. The whole idea behind it is just to constipate things, to disrupt things. Things will continue to happen. As I said before, bills will get to where they need to, but the idea behind causing this kind of division, causing this kind of craziness, is to stall things. You see, and that's what's happening right now on so many different levels, on a political, socio-political, socio-economic. A lot of different things are happening within the country and the world, and by causing this type of what I've just termed political polarization, by kind of exciting this type of stuff, what you're basically doing is getting out the extremes, the worst. And some people can't really seem to see how that's creating an opportunity for everybody else to come through and start causing more problems for us. Now, recently, China, you know, we have to look at what's going on with China. You have people here, as I said before, causing problems within our country. China is refusing to work with us. We are, for some reason, not working with Russia. On the geopolitical scale, we're getting screwed. Okay, that's the simplest way to say it. We are losing power on the global scale. We're in endless wars. We have no idea what we're doing. We're scattered, right? I'm still talking about these New Mexico jihadis, how we're getting infiltrated, everything else. But don't worry, Donald Trump's our president, so we need to destroy the country. We need to burn it down. We're not talking about how we've been infiltrated. We're not talking about how stuff's being, moved over to China. We're not talking about how everything is kind of, really up in the air right now, and we're just acting like everything's okay. The world dominance position that we were in, right? It's being taken over by China slowly, for sure. For sure. Right here, China's peace arc makes historic visit to Venezuela after Maduro visits Beijing. This was put up September 24th. It's by Mint Press News. They reposted it by Zero Hedge. And basically, what we're talking about is how, for the first time, a Chinese naval ship has traveled to Venezuela following the visit by President Nicolas Maduro to Beijing earlier this month, where he asked China's leadership for economic support following the collapse of its economy, said China News Asia. Now, before I continue, realize Venezuela has been involved with cryptocurrency. Realize China just gave all kinds of money to South Africa, as they said before, no strings attached, right? That's what they said. No strings attached. Now you got, and I'll get into all this stuff later on. Back in September 6th, we talked about how China is offering Africa $60 billion, no strings attached. That's crazy. And now you got Venezuela saying, hey, look, we need economic support. They're coming up with their own currency, too, the petro. But you have communist countries basically coming together. When I talk about the global communist invasion, I talk about, again, Agenda 21, what these communist countries have all agreed to do. This is the New World Order, where we're all gonna learn to share the planet, so to speak. But continuing on with this article, it says the naval medical ship known as the Peace Ark had moored on Saturday at the port of La Guaira near the Venezuelan capital. Maduro, whose socialist government is facing a severe backlash in Venezuela as the economy continues to collapse with the fifth year of depression and hyperinflation, visited Beijing earlier this month. China's government promised to aid the country but did not make public if any new loans were issued. In the last decade, China has provided Venezuela with billions of dollars in credit, in particular the Oil for Loan program that helped China secure cheap energy supplies for its fast-paced economy while also supporting an anti-Washington movement in Latin America. According to Maduro, the Peace Ark will be moored in Venezuela for a little bit more than a week. During the visit, Chinese and Venezuelan officials will host several meetings and inspect medical facilities in the country. The Peace Ark has received warm greetings from Venezuela's top military officials. Defense Minister Vladimir Pedrino Lopez, who welcomed the hospital ship, told the sailors, quote, "This is how you undertake diplomacy in the world, with concrete action and cooperation, and not stoking the false voices of those who beat the drum of war." He later tweeted that the visit was a manifestation of true diplomacy of peace, and both countries share a common destiny. President Maduro also tweeted that the hospital ship was the start of a combined integrated strategic operation between the two countries. RT points out that the Chinese goodwill mission overlapped a similar mission by the U.S. The Pentagon announced August it would send to its 250-bed hospital, the USNS Comfort, to neighboring Colombia. While the U.S. military maintained the Comfort's mission has nothing to do with politics, the Trump administration has occasionally slammed the Maduro regime. Quote, "We're not sending soldiers, we're sending doctors, and it's an effort to deal with the human cost of Maduro and his increased isolated regime," Defense Secretary James Mattis said. Now, I'm going to stop right there because there's just so many different angles to look at with that. We're talking about hyperinflation. We're talking about the collapse of an economy. We're seeing, again, socialism, communism take over within a country and how they're clicking up, right? China says, okay, we can help you out. America, you're not doing anything. We got you. And think about this. What does that mean? We're planning a coup in Venezuela, but they're trying to help them out. And this is all wild that we have to think about. This is what I mean by the revolution collusion. When these things take over, again, you've got to look at where the money's coming from, who's doing the actions, what moves are being made, and what countries are politically posturing themselves to be in positions of advantage. And while we're over here worried about who's in office, we're not necessarily trying to figure out ways to keep what we have. We're going through this nationalist mindset to where we want everything American made. It's crazy. You know, they're sabotaging the country. They're sabotaging the mind. They're sabotaging our generation. As I've said before, you know, we're here in America. We're going through a period of demoralization, deconstructivism, as I've talked about it, where they're just destroying what it means to actually be American, so that we can come through with this new form of Americanism. And that's what's happening. You know, we're being hit from every single angle. And so you have to ask, again, what is a revolution whenever it has this many this many ways of being, I guess, bought, this many ways of just kind of being taken over, of co-opted for so much more. But it's wild. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking about, you know, more of what's going on. Amazon's cashless stores, Apple's trust scores, the selfish ledger, Google's social credit score, and all this other stuff, the concept of scoring society. You know, recently, Julian Assange said that the generation born now is the last to be born free. I've said that this is the last generation of humanity to be born human, with all the biohacking and the epigenetics, the eugenics, and everything else that's going on. So we'll be getting into that and more on the other side. Don't go anywhere. This is Factions of Freedom. We'll be right back. Salutations, my friends. I'm here to talk to you about, that's right, CBD oil. CBD oil can reduce the risk of relapse among alcohol and cocaine addicts, and you know they're trying to flood us with both. According to a 2013 study published in the British Journal of Clinical Pharmacology, CBD was proven to have these benefits: relieving pain and inflammation, having antipsychotic effects, reducing anxiety, helping to fight cancer, relieving nausea, treating seizures, lowering incidences of diabetes, and also promoting cardiovascular health. Realized that in 2014, Purdue Pharma received FDA approval for an opioid drug that claimed to help curb the opioid addiction. This will actually help you curb your usage of opioids as well as your reliance upon them. And remember, guys and gals, stay vigilant. Expose lies and share the truth. This is Noise Era, Freedom Faction, out. That's right. It seems like, what's the easiest way to say this? It seems like we're kind of losing our mind. And there's some people in the background watching us, and we're starting to notice them, and we're wondering what's going on. And I'm wondering, how long have they been there? Thank you for tuning in to this segment of Factions of Freedom. We're going to be talking about, again, the technocracy, the surveillance state, all this stuff that we see happening. Before I get into everything, because I want to play for you guys, some clips. This has been a very video-oriented episode, clips about all this stuff that's going on. You have to understand, we live in a world now to where we are being monitored 24/7. Metadata, even, private data, everything. It's being calculated and categorized. We should do an episode, a revisited episode, where we've actually gone over the intent of the founders of the technocracy. And again, look at things like the Tavistock Institute, 1984, George Orwell, Brave New World, and how really, that was like a roadmap to where we are now, and how they're trying to create essentially this mark of the beast style system to where you can no longer buy or sell. This is the whole reason as to why we are here, gang. This is the whole reason as to why I am here. You hear me always talking about the Christian persecution that's going on in China, because I came into this, as I said before, as a Christian, as somebody, who still had faith in the church. And then you see what's going on with this pedogate stuff, the Catholic Church and more, and you lose faith with the church, but you don't lose your faith in God. Now, they say that the Bible was divinely inspired by men of God. It is the Word of God, right? So then why was a system like this talked about in the Bible? And why didn't people within the church stop this stuff from happening? I told you guys this before we were going on the break, that Julian Assange talked about how we are the last generation to be born free. Why do you think I'm here? Why do you think I'm really putting all this stuff out here? Why do you think I'm really trying to show you the essence of what one human can do and why we need to come together? I'm not doing this stuff for fun. I'm doing this stuff as a safety measure, as a self-preservation measure. When we look back in the future and we wonder what the hell was going on and how we couldn't stop it, what are we going to tell our kids? What am I going to tell myself? I have, good God, I feel like I have such a responsibility, and I am so willing to bear it on my shoulders because, it's this or bust. They're trying to put us into the matrix, and we know where it goes from there. And so it's wild. That's why prophecy is so important. History is so important, and they're trying to delete it. They're trying to distort it. They're trying to manipulate it. Good Lord. And it starts with stuff like this, cashless stores, trust scores, social credit systems, content deletion, censoring comments. You're not allowed to say this, political correctness, all this other crazy. It really starts with this. I'm going to say this, and then I'll get into all this other stuff we got going on. I've talked about how we're going into a new dark age. We are going into a technocratic, feudalistic dark age. They're over here manipulating information, distorting information. We have no, and I was talking about this too, I think with Jay, of Truth is Our Religion. All these truth accounts and hardly no knowledge. All these truth accounts and no wisdom. We need to get out there. This dark age that we're going into, this is why they're trying to really radicalize people to the point to where they just want to go out and do the dumbest, craziest stuff. It's called the purge, right? Then they shut down the internet, leaving us at a state of where we're just radicalized, going about our lives, not really thinking about what's happening, besides playing into the system. You see, we'll be in this, as I said before, this technocratic, feudalistic dark age, to where things are futuristic, but we're regressed in some way. And I've also talked about it in relation to the technocracy, transhumanism, and this awakening that we're going through, how these are all different paths that humanity will take. It is wild. It really it becomes wild, as I said before, being in this position. And what's even more wild, I'll say this again, and then I'll play this clip for you guys. The being in this position rewards me to talk to Very, very interesting people. And not only do Freemasons know this, military people know this, and it's crazy. You know, civilian activists know this, militia members know this, we know this. And some people are paying attention, and whether or not we are is the bigger picture. But with that being said, let's get into this segment. As I said before, I'm going to play for you guys this clip of Amazon's cashless store. Why they want to start tracking your purchases. Yes, it seems cool and trendy, but I wonder where it will lead us. Let's take a listen.
How big a push is this?
This is a really huge push. Amazon's been toying with physical stores for a few years now. It started with its bookstores. It now has maybe 20 around the country. It purchased Whole Foods. But Amazon Go is really this cashierless store where you can go in, take what you want, and leave without having to stand in a line or pay anybody, is the most distinct of all of the things it's tried. And so now what we're seeing is that they want to really put all of their horsepower behind this and really expand the cashierless store around the country more than any of the other things they've been toying with.
Yeah, Spencer, congratulations on the scoop. Give us some context here for what 3,000 convenience stores would mean compared to the convenience stores that currently are available in the U.S., 7-Elevens among them. How big of an entry is this?
This would make them among the largest, not the top. 7-Eleven's the biggest. And where it gets a little murky is most convenience stores are combined with gas stations, and that's not what Amazon is doing. So yeah, you think, and even 7-Eleven is an example of that. Sometimes they sell gas, sometimes they don't. So this would be more like your urban type 7-Eleven. But that's why we're also looking at, is this so much of a play on convenience stores, or is it more a play on a quick food option like a Subway, like a Panera Bread, those sorts of stores? Because right now Amazon has 4 of these. 2 of them are the format that's like grab a sandwich and salad that's already prepared to go, as well as a limited grocery selection like a 7-Eleven. 2 of them are simply that kind of quick meal to go, the sandwiches, the salads, but not the limited grocery selection. And what that shows is that Amazon needs to figure out how to grow this but limit the cost, because the cost of this technology is extremely expensive right now. And so by narrowing the focus on simply prepared food, they can keep the cost down and expand more quickly.
Lots of things to look at there. 3,000 stores. The fact that they want to put it in urban types settings and all kinds of other things, and they come along with that. Now, what I believe we'll start to see is different pockets of highly tech forms of civilization. And the easiest way to describe that is basically, I remember it was either towards the start of this year or last year, right? They announced that they were going to, and I think it's either China or Japan, they announced that they were going to start having like little mobile food carts that just went around in cities, and just like you had an app and you could just order up this car, and it would be like a little convenient style car, and there would be like sodas, chips, food, and all this other cool stuff, and that's it. You use your phone or whatever banking account you have, you take all the items, it registers all of that, man, and bing, bang, boom, that's it. It goes on its way. That's eventually what Amazon Go will lead to. This is the cashless society. Now, all of this type of stuff plays into, again, this mark of the beast style system, the technocracy that you see these people creating. And the idea behind this is as they try to pitch it to you in the form of convenience, but we're not really looking at how we have become the product. We're not looking at how they want to create this society where everything is online and you are constantly being judged, right? Now, think about this. In this cashless society, in this autonomous society, where everything is convenient, you can literally order up food, you can order up clothes, you can order up all kinds of different products. Now, that seems great, right? We can build anything at our fingertips, except for the people who see us building what we're building. Apple is now giving people trust scores based on their calls and email. Now, this is something from STHF Planned, but our good friends over there at Planet Free Will put this up. I'm going to play a quick clip from the TV show Black Mirror. For people who don't know what this is, you're basically missing out. You're seeing how they're telling you what the future is. It's very dystopian. It's very scary, but prepare yourself to look at how you will be judged in the future. China is already rolling these types of things out. The social credit score system is here.
And that's one brush swing. You want a cookie with that? It's on the house.
Sounds awesome.
See you, Lacey.
Oh, saw your boy in the fire hat just now. So cute.
Yeah, he's really something.
And then she does what most people do these days, is they do really, really ridiculous stuff, and they try to look cute so other people can watch them, be cute and hope that they can get reviews on how cute they are. And it's very strange. I don't get it. It's like taking pictures of your food. Hey man, just eat it. But back to the information. What we're talking about is grading people. What we're talking about is the harvesting of information. What we're talking about, again, is this technocratic society, the scientific dictatorship. Your friends have become the cameras. Your friends are a review of who you are. So when you're getting those likes about posting truth versus those likes of posting selfies, this creates that system. That's what Facebook was engineered to be, is to create this foundational infrastructure for us to upload society onto things. Let me get into this article. We put this up September 20th. Can you believe this is 17 years after 9/11? But we put this up September 20th. This information will not likely be a surprise to anyone who's been paying attention to big tech's increasing propensity to violate the privacy of users and their data for questionable reasons. But here we are. 2 days ago, the tech website VentureBeat noticed an eye-browsing bit in the latest update to Apple's privacy policy. Apple's promise of transparency regarding user data means that any new privacy policy might update might reveal that it's doing something new and weird with your data. Alongside yesterday's release of iOS 12, tvOS 12, and watchOS 5, Apple quietly updated some of its iTunes Store terms and privacy disclosures, including one standout provision. It's now using an abstracted summary of your phone calls or emails as an anti-fraud measure. The provision, which appears in iTunes Store and privacy windows of iOS and tvOS devices, says to help identify and prevent fraud, information about you, how you use your device, including all the approximate number of phone calls or emails you send and receive, will be used to compute a device trust score when you attempt to purchase. The submissions are designed so Apple cannot learn the real values on your device. The scores are stored for a fixed time on our servers. VentureBeat points out that this provision is unusual, in part because it includes Apple's TVs, which do not have the capability to make calls or send emails. Unless you get some of these new TVs actually do have TV mics in them. That's how they're able to listen to you, and they're connected to your phone. The smart homes of today are crazy. But continuing on, it says it's equally unclear how recording and tracking the number of calls traversing a user's iPhone, iPad, or iPod Touch would better enable Apple to verify a device's identity than just checking its unique device identifier. Every one of these devices has both hard-coded serial numbers and advertising identifiers, while iPhone and cellular iPads also have SIM cards with other device-specific codes. Now, what they're basically saying is they're reading your emails. Gotcha. They're reading your emails. They have some kind of algorithmic thing to where they can pay attention to what you're doing, what you're saying. That's what I mean. You see, it's no longer individuals in which we're dealing with. We're now literally dealing with algorithms. They're unleashing the AI onto us. You see. And it gets crazier. This is just Apple, okay? Let's get into this. We put this up literally a day before that one. It's how it's leaked. Google got involved in the control of human evolution. Google has now made it clear what it plans to do with your data, behavior modification, social engineering, and directed human evolution via the selfish ledger, i.e. AI. Now, before I play this clip for you guys, I definitely want you to go to our page, and on your phone, go watch the full 8-minute video. I went and put that up on our Instagram TV so that it could be referred back to. But this is just a quick clip of where they're talking about eugenics. Google being able to have this information to where they can see what they're doing. The man in this video does a lot better at explaining it, but let's take a listen.
He believed that the experiences of an organism during its life modified this internal code, and upon reproduction, this modified version was passed down to its young. Whilst not biologically accurate, and ultimately superseded by Darwin's theory of natural selection, the epigenetic theories put forward by him are beginning to find new homes in unexpected places. When we use contemporary technology, a trail of information is created in the form of data. When analyzed, it describes our actions, decisions, preferences, movement, and relationships. This codified version of who we are becomes ever more complex, developing, changing, and deforming based on our actions. In this regard, this ledger of our data may be considered a Lamarckian epigenome, a constantly evolving representation of who we are.
And now, one of the reasons I play that for you is because it's the fact that we're seeing Google now admit that they are aware that they are taking part in human evolution, maybe not necessarily biologically, as we've seen with things like Monsanto and Bayer and all these other companies, but technologically, as I said before, with behavior modification, social engineering, feeding you information, changing your experiences, using this Lamarckian user data, trying to figure out what your actions are, what your preferences are, you see, what your differences are. Google wants a complete ledger of your life, a complete account using extensive data of all your actions, decisions, preferences, movements, and relationships. It then wants to use pattern recognition and other tools with this data to direct your life. At first, this so-called selfish ledger will be user-driven, but the implication is that soon thereafter it will be driven by the ledger itself, i.e. the AI. The AI will guide you. AI programmed with Google's values, whatever they decide to be. The deeper meaning of the selfish ledger is shocking. Google freely admits that it is aiming for complete species-wide understanding with the selfish ledger, and thus to be able to direct human evolution. As described in the video, the selfish ledger will be a complete record or account of who you are. The word ledger denotes accounting, numbers, and now blockchain. Google is planning to pitch the idea to the public by presenting it as a selfish ledger that is all about you. They state in the video that initially the ledger would be user-driven, so the user would select the volition of the ledger, inputs of the goals or values, then allow the ledger to help them make better decisions to reach those goals. The video states that people would initially use it in areas of health or environmental impact, then measure themselves up to it. And what they mean by that is, where can I consume better? How can I eat better? Google, Siri, how can I eat better? Alexa, what is a healthy food? What is a decent vegan diet? Do I want to go on keto diets? You see, what's the craziest new diet right now? Go ahead and ask your ledger. What happens whenever you forego your own decisions and put your faith in the idea of you? It's crazy. The idea of you as proposed by Google. But let me get back into this. It says Google gives the example of the ledger suggesting to the user that they could buy locally sourced bananas, or how they could carpool making better environmental choices. The ledger could also be used to suggest entirely new, custom, and never before made products for people based on their data, needs, and preferences, which it would, know intimately. The ledger would rely on all existing data. However, the video quickly moves on to the point of how the ledger could then seek other data sources to fill the data gap. It also implies that after the initial period, Google would provide the ledger with the goals, and the user would therefore be molded and directed to adhere to the objectives and values which he or she did not choose. But you put your faith in Google, and they had all the answers. And this is what I mean by their selfish ledger. Now I'm going to play again for you another clip. Why we have to understand what's going on with this whole social credit, sesame credit system, man. It's crazy. They are literally using technology to tell you what to think, how to feel, how to act. We're over here trying to hack society with a little bit of people that pay attention and say, look, man, they are programming you. We've talked about, too, Sean Parker, one of the co-founders of Facebook, coming out and saying, hey, look, we are programming you. We didn't know it at first, but we learned, and we are sorry. Now you got all these people saying, yeah, it's true. You got us. We're programming humanity. And then, their response is, oh, crap. These people, they're learning how to unprogram themselves. They're following pages like Freedom Faction. Good God. They're learning to think. They're making decisions, educated and informed decisions. They don't want the McDonald's anymore. What are we doing? It's crazy. Shut it down. Censorship. We got to watch who's doing what. We got to watch how information's being exchanged. We're going to start taxing links. It's crazy. And I make that sound as a joke because that's the dire straits that we're in. We're literally seeing them trying to control and manipulate information. And it starts with this: what you see, what you feel, what you act, what you believe in, what you stand for, what you fall for. You see. The only thing I can say in relation to that is one of the beautiful things about being human is that it shouldn't be predictable. While there may be, nothing new under the sun, and this may have been your fourth time here, who knows? We've talked about past life regression, this, that, and the third. You have the ability, you're alive. Life is not predictable. Don't play it safe. Don't be comfortable. But I'm going to play for you guys this clip again where we've talked about China's surveillance state, their social credit system, and how, again, this is stuff that plays into it. So with the selfish ledger, Apple's trust scores, and I've talked about it again, the minicast that I did over Facebook's user reputation score, we're seeing how they're using technology to kind of, as stated in that previous article, guide human evolution. But let's take a listen.
For decades, facial recognition has been the stuff of science fiction. And for many here in China, it's already becoming a part of daily life. Thanks to huge advances in artificial intelligence, people here can use their faces to log into mobile apps, access office buildings, and take money out of ATMs. At this KFC in Beijing, you can even use your face to get meal recommendations. Not all of the applications are so mundane. Police are also using the technology to shame jaywalkers and to scan crowds for persons of interest. A massive centralized database makes it possible for authorities and some private companies to identify nearly anyone by capturing their face. Access to these photos is a boon to companies like search giant Baidu, which is using them to build a range of products.
With a data set maintained by government. Basically, that means that for almost everyone who has the ID, or everyone over 18 years old, the government will have your face in the database.
Some worry this technology could lead to serious invasions of privacy.
It will.
Make it easier for authorities to track political dissidents. But others see it as a powerful tool for public safety.
Not only helps to track criminals, it also helps find missing people. So it's good for the society.
Facial recognition algorithms are growing exponentially faster and more powerful, thanks to a new technology called deep learning that allows computers to mimic the human brain's ability to learn. That means they can now compensate for problems like low light and bad angles. They can also adjust for age, making it possible to identify adults from their childhood pictures. So how does it work? Using complex algorithms, facial recognition systems start out by identifying all of the faces in a given image. For each face, the algorithm measures out key data points, like the distance between the eyes or the color of the skin. They then use those measurements to create a template that can be compared against other templates in a facial database. The more data they have, the better these systems do. Hundreds of millions of social media users here upload photos every day under terms of service that basically allow tech companies to do what they want with the images. Add a vast network of surveillance cameras, and China has lots of data to feed its algorithms. There are 170 million surveillance cameras installed in China, including more than a dozen on this stretch of road behind Beijing's Forbidden City. Analysts say China plans to install 450 million new surveillance cameras by the year 2020. The massive market represented by those cameras has attracted interest from established companies and startups alike. At one facial recognition startup, SenseTime, employees' faces are scanned at the door.
So for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and cut this short. But people need to understand, again, what is going on with society, with this technocratic takeover. Again, we're seeing the number 2021, 2020, 2030 being tossed out there. I hope you guys really understand why that is something I feel like we really need to focus on. It's not just as simple as, okay, we need to live in harmony with the planet. It is much, much deeper than that. And I think people are really starting to get that now. This article that popped up earlier this week, September 21st, from Technocracy, it was actually reposted by RT. It says Julian Assange talking about how the generation being born now is the last to be born free. This is important because it's unfortunately very true. This is, again, the times that we are in. This is the technocracy. This is the New World Order. When you're taking pictures of your baby, you're already putting that child in the system. Another thing I talked about before we did this episode today is how, what is Snapchat? What is Facebook? What is Twitter? What is Instagram? How long until, these companies, right? How long is it until they merge publicly with the government? Privately, they may have already done that. We've talked about how the Washington Post, Jeff Bezos, Amazon, all these people, how they're tied together. How Twitter or how Facebook was LifeLog prior to it being Facebook, how it was funded by DARPA and all kinds of other shadowy organizations. And now, all the things that go on with social media, period. How long until we actually see them publicly, conjoined with the government? So you may not be giving your information to the government, but they'll find a way to get you and your preferences and your metadata through social media. That's kind of, why it's a two-edged sword, what we're doing here. Now, when you're taking pictures of your child and putting it on social media, you may delete it, but they may not. They give you access to your information, but they store what you do. They store your likes. They store what you share. They store what you privately share. They monitor you. You only see one dimension of it, the same way you guys only see one dimension of the work that we do here. They show you what you can see. On the end of this here little, bright little screen that we're working on, right? For these technocrats and for these Luciferians and these Satanists, right, you just got demonic people in the background just like, we need more data. We need more information. And I've talked about this, the technosorcery aspect of it, but I digress. Let me get into this article right here. We put this up September 21st. It's from Technocracy News. It says Julian Assange, founder of WikiLeaks in 2006, is an intellect and a patriot along the order of Edward Snowden. Both of these people have been confirmed as controlled opposition, but continuing on, it says what he calls the, quote, open-cut harvesting, the knowledge of the humankind, is leading toward an AI-based scientific dictatorship or technocracy. Before his links to the world were cut by Ecuadorian hosts, WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange gave an interview on how technological advances are changing humankind. He said global surveillance will soon be totally unavoidable. The interview was provided by RT by organizers at the World Ethical Data Forum in Barcelona. Assange, who is currently stranded in the Ecuadorian embassy in London with no outside communication except with his legal team, has a pretty grim outlook on where humanity is going. He says it will soon be impossible for any being any human being to not be included in the global databases collected by governments and state-like entities. This generation being born now is the last free generation. You are born, and either immediately or within, say, a year, you are known globally. Your identity in one form or another, coming as a result of your idiotic parents plastering your name and photos all over Facebook, or as a result of insurance policies and applications or passport applications, is known to all major world powers. Quote, a small child now, in some sense, has to negotiate its relationship with all the major world powers. It puts us in a very different position. Very few technically capable people are able to live apart, to choose to live apart, to choose to go their own way, he added. It smells a bit like totalitarianism in some way. The capacity to collect and process information about people has been growing exponentially and will continue to grow fast, he stated. With advancements in applying artificial intelligence to big data, the next logical step is coming. Look at what Google and Baidu and Tencent and Amazon and Facebook are already doing. They are basically open-cut harvesting the knowledge of humankind, and as we express it when we communicate with one another. So as I said before, your child, while you're taking the pictures, and yes, you know, I'm sure your child is very beautiful to you, you know, doesn't mean that those types of things should be out there. You've got to understand, social media was designed to have you compare yourself. And when you're, this is the siren song. This is the lull of technology. This is the pull of social media. This is what they do. It's like they lace this stuff with drugs. That's why they give you the dopamine hit. Sean Parker talked about that as well. They understand what they're doing. And it's multi-leveled. And now they say they're going to break it up. Okay, so you're going to break up this big boss and just make all kinds of little mini bosses that we have to go figure out now. Right? It's like, I forget what movie it's in. It might have been one of the Lost in Space movies, but it's like whenever somebody's infected with all these spiders, you know, and then they fall down, they hit the ground, and then it just like dissolves into all kinds of other spiders. Great, thanks. That's what we have to do. We have all these other smaller things that we've got to start dealing with now, not only to try to get the information out to you guys, but to also really be aware of the times that we're in. There's no going back. The world is online. And there is nowhere else for us to go. You see, that movie Ready Player One, I finally watched it, right? And it was spot on. You know, we are going to be so absorbed in this matrix that we won't care about the physical world that is going on. Children will understand that they can make more of they'll make more of a life in the digital world than they will in the real world because of just the strategic things that are going on. It is crazy. You know, I really need to do a more updated version of Building the Matrix now that we have access to all this stuff and information and equipment, because it is crazy and wild what they are trying to do in so many different ways. I mean, here, let me play for you guys this clip, right? Same day. You know, we're still talking about the same stuff, just another form, another side of the dice, right? Scientists discover how to upload information into your brain that could make Matrix-style instant learning a reality. How does this tie into people not being born free? We've talked about epigenetics, we've talked about eugenics, we've talked about gametogenesis, we've talked about ectogenesis and everything else, cloning, facilities, the fertilization association, whoever decides what you're allowed to have in the future. You see, because birth will be regulated. We're having 3-parent babies now. The last generation to be free. What does that mean? We have people who literally give over our generation's entire family data to ancestry.com. And you see what I'm saying? 23andMe. I talked about this a few months back, a few episodes back, how GlaxoSmithKline started teaming up with 23andMe to start, you know, providing people with DNA I guess packages. I don't even know what you would call it, man. It's crazy. But this is what I'm talking about. We keep giving them more and more information, and we're like, oh God, how's this? How did we end up here? How did this happen? Because you started telling everybody what your preferences was on Facebook. And now they've got algorithms so strong that you don't even have to tell Facebook your preferences for them to figure out what your preferences is. It's crazy. And now, like I said, we're talking about information being uploaded directly into your brain. Who knows if in these motherless chambers, these Genesis chambers where they are growing these real test tube babies. Who knows if they're able to directly upload information to the brain? We think of it in a very rudimentary and simple way. Oh no, you know, they're going to put a chip in me. They're going to put some microchip in me and I'm going to hear voices. Man, that's silly. Information can literally be stored in DNA now. People don't even understand DNA unlocking. You know, how that's some other stuff too. DNA activation. How you have to go through certain things to unlock certain biological patterns, rhythms, and things in your DNA. It's crazy. And these people are figuring it out. You see, I'll say this and then I'll play this clip and we'll take a break. We need to understand that these people have very, very advanced technology. We're 30 years behind. 30, 50, 100 years behind. I've talked again, you know, about how ancient technology, we're playing catch up to that. You know, what did we talk about at the start of the year? And also in 2017 with Antarctica, the information that was coming out there. There is so much, and it's wild. It's wild. But let me play for you guys this clip. They're figuring out ways to upload information to our brain. Now, this is one of those slide caption style videos. I'll just read those for you guys as it goes. It says, we're one step closer to uploading knowledge into our brains, Matrix style. Researchers at HRL Laboratories are building a groundbreaking brain simulation system. They discovered that low current electrical brain simulation can influence the learning of complex skills. The process starts by measuring the brain patterns of experts in a given field. Those patterns are then transmitted to novice learners using head caps covered in electrodes. HRL ran their test using commercial and military pilots. Their brain patterns were transmitted to students training with a flight simulator. The study found that the subjects who received the brain patterns learned quicker. So basically, we're doing transcranial information sharing. Accelerated learning like this has countless applications, and we've just begun to look at them. Yeah, this is where we're at. This is where we're at. Literally uploading information to your brain, as if YouTube wasn't enough. But we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, you know, we'll be talking again about the future, the fiascos of our future. Flint still doesn't have clean water, yet Jeff Bezos is over here talking about space tourism. Donald Trump wants to create the Space Force, but we still can't get clean water. What's going on? These are the fiascos of our future, and that is the scoring of society. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this. Whew. Man, I feel like sometimes I get fired up because you're literally talking about your unborn child being affected by all this stuff, and you got to ask your parents, did they think about this whenever they brought you in? Did they think that they were going to be dealing with this during your birth? Did you think you were going to be dealing with this, in your lifetime? And here's where we are. Thank you for tuning in to this segment of Factions of Freedom. This is the Fiascos of Our Future. Now, before I get into these things, I want to make a quick detour, right, about this type of stuff, because these also pertain to Fiascos of Our Future, whether or not our children will be able to deal with these types of things. But this kind of popped up last week, and I really wanted to see, what happened and what developments took place. But Cody Wilson, the 3D gun pioneer, is wanted for sexual assault of a minor. He is run to Thailand, and apparently they have caught him. Now, I believe Cody could be innocent. This is the day and age to where people are making accusations and they're running to the media and they're getting paid. Now, I do believe we should listen to sexual abuse survivors and people who have gone through these types of things, no doubt. But I also know the day and age, man. People love to say, oh, I blacked out, I don't know what happened. Well, you're a lying sack of crap. You know exactly what happened. It was some dischivalrous stuff, and you decided to act the other way. But right here we have another article. Taiwan police apprehend a 3D gun pioneer accused of child sex abuse. Hours after the search began, Reuters reports that Taiwan police have apprehended Cody Wilson in Taipei after U.S. authorities annulled his passport. Apparently, he was caught having sex with a 19-year-old girl. Cody is 30. Now, I don't think she was 19. I think she was 17 or something. Let me get a confirmation on how old she was. She was 16, but she was registered as 18 on SugarDaddyMeat.com. So basically, I don't know if he got honeypotted or trapped, but this Cody might get extorted. He might get ran for his money. He either might have to pay up or end up in jail. Who knows how this is gonna play out? But Cody Wilson, 30, was taken to immigration authorities in the capital by officers from Taiwan's Criminal Investigation Bureau, according to local media reports, and an official from the bureau who asked not to be named. However, 2 Taiwanese officials denied Wilson was arrested or in custody. His exact status was unclear. That's why I myself don't know what's going on. But because his U.S. passport was later annulled, the agency statement said he, quote, no longer has the legal status to stay in Taiwan. Facing executions of having sex with a minor, it appears that Cody Wilson, the man behind the 3D printable firearms company Defense Distributed, is somewhere in Taiwan being pursued by local authorities. According to reporting by Chinese language media outlet United Daily News, Wilson has skipped his flight home to the U.S. and has attempted to rent an apartment in Taiwan. He appears to have initially passed himself off as an American student living in the city, but has since been turned away by a prospective landlord who recognized him and called the authorities. United Daily News reports that area police and Taiwan's Criminal Investigation Bureau are now trying to locate Wilson. On Wednesday, police in Austin, Texas announced that they had a warrant out for the arrest of 3D gun printed pioneer. Wow, crazy. After allegations of sexual assault of an underage girl. Now, why is this a fiasco of the future? Our kids should have access to guns. And our kids should be able to be trained and whatever we see fit. Or whatever they see fit. We're allowing these kids to decide what kind of gender they are. Well, if my son wants to be able to throw a kunai or a shuriken or an axe or a knife, well, they should. If they want to throw 3D printed guns, they should have the right. How is that a fiasco of our future? Well, they're trying to limit the ability of people being able to have access to weapons. And people will find a way. So I hope we figure out what's going on with Cody, and I hope all this stuff kind of ends up cleared. But we'll see. We will see. Just this week alone, we're figuring out what's happening with Bill Cosby. Unfortunately, he's going to prison for some of the rape allegations. And if you look at it, I'm asking, where's the arrest for Jeffrey Epstein? Where's the arrest for Bill Clinton? where Charlie Sheen, all the other people that have been accused of rape, why aren't they going to jail? Why is Bill Cosby going to jail? But to get back into the news, fiascos of the future, things that are going on that we have to deal with. Ted Cruz. Now, I don't like him. I think he looks like that vampire guy from the Addams Family, right? But he was recently harassed by protesters, heckled, and I shouldn't laugh. This is something serious. I remember reporting on an article, I think sometime last year, about how, politicians were worried that they were going to be attacked and mobbed by protesters over health care, and I thought that was ridiculous. But now we have protesters showing up heckling senators and stuff like that, and more of these types of things are happening. Ron Paul being shot, people being ran up on in the middle of the street. It's crazy. This is the radicalization of individuals through propaganda media. This is agitation propaganda. When they say go out there and go do these types of things, people say, all right, I got the okay. Yeah, for sure. Common sense people wouldn't do these types of things, but then again, common sense isn't common. Let's take a listen.
We believe survivors. We believe survivors. We believe survivors. We believe survivors. NATO is way hotter than you do. We believe survivors. We believe survivors. We believe survivors. God bless you.
Let my wife through.
We believe survivors. 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 Texas racist anti-gay. We believe survivors. We believe survivors. We believe survivors.
Leave the premises. It's a private.
And there you have it. They kicked Ted Cruz out the restaurant. Now, what else would you do if a group of people came in chanting, shouting at you some stuff? You're trying to have dinner with your wife. Now, I'd jaw somebody, but then again, it's 2018. They have cameras. That causes all kinds of other problems. But you run up on me with my wife and kids, I'll jaw you. All right, I'll drop you. I don't care what's watching. Okay, that's disrespectful. Now, one of the things I want to address here is the fact that you have these people threatening senators. You have them saying the day after, "You are not safe. We will find you." These are elected public officials. Now, we have every right, to some degree, to do these types of things, to call them out on their bullcrap, because these people are supposed to represent us. Now, when you have these types of things, mob rule, protesters running up in you, disrupting your type of disrupting your gathering, right? That's not the way to get the message across. But it is also a way to say, look, we don't care about formality, structure, order, any of that stuff. We will confine you. I get that. What is happening right now is, again, sending the signal out to people, activating agents, people who were thinking some of this is a game, some people thinking, hey, I don't know what's going on. This is sending the signal that these are the time frames that we are in, that you're allowed to do these types of things. How long will it be until we actually have people trying to, again, take out elected officials? Could this be one of Antifa's long-term plans, is to have like a simultaneous attack on our elected officials to cripple the government so that they can install their own members? Who knows? The level of paranoia that all this stuff will cause is kind of wild, no doubt. But one thing I think people need to really think about at the end of the day, too, is, again, the state of society, how we've reached this point, how this stuff has not necessarily become okay, but where we've gotten to, this kind of legalized insanity, this lunacy that's just kind of pervading everything. You see, fiascos of our future. IQs are dropping. We're not producing things. We're not creative. We really need to figure out what is happening with society, because we're killing ourselves hovering over these phones. And that's a lot of what this stuff is too, the political polarization that we see happening. People just want a villain. Things have been so dumbed down. You could point at somebody and say, I don't like that guy for this reason, and people will have a movement to say, either kill this guy or get him out of here. This is, again, more of that polarization, that agitation, the radicalization of everything that we see going on. We don't know where, for people who pay attention to everything that's going on, are people really in their right minds? Like, just get to it. Are people in their right minds? And as I said before, Flint still doesn't have clean water. We have the Dakota Access Pipeline, and as I said before, the Bayou Bridge Pipeline, people trying to make sure that we have access to clean water. But on the flip side, you have companies like Nestle literally taking a town's water and selling it back to them. Are people in their right minds? Are things right? Are we trying to be sane in an insane world? And I'm going to play for you guys a clip where we're talking about what are the chemicals in the food and the water. You know, we've talked about how atrazine is in the water, lead is in the water, fluoride is in the water, and everything else is in. These things are in the water. That's just the water. The food, Monsanto, Bayer, what they're spraying, bisphenol A, glyphosate, you name it. This stuff is very important. These are the fiascos of our future. This is what our children will have to deal with. This is the epigenetic factors that a lot of people aren't taking into consideration.
10,000 chemicals in food and food packaging. What are these substances doing to our children? Almost 4 in 10 adolescents are either overweight or obese. Teens derive over 2/3 of their calories from ultra-processed foods filled with food additives. A new policy statement from the American Academy of Pediatrics states that over 10,000 chemicals are directly or indirectly added to food or food packaging, and many of these chemicals are causing illness or disease, including obesity. Infants and children are more vulnerable to these chemicals than adults. Chemicals directly added to food include artificial food colors, which are linked to ADD, ADHD, immune reactivity, and behavioral symptoms such as irritability, sleep problems, restlessness, and aggression. The daily intake of artificial food colors that the FDA certifies as acceptable has increased more than 5-fold since 1950. Many chemicals make their way into food and beverages indirectly, including adhesives, dyes, coatings, paper and paperboard, plastic, and other polymers which may contaminate food as part of packaging or manufacturing equipment. These chemicals have been linked to endocrine, neurodevelopmental, and thyroid disruption, cancer, heart problems, immune system suppression, low birth weight, and obesity. The majority of additives in U.S. foods have undergone inadequate or zero regulatory oversight. The American Academy of Pediatrics says that the FDA urgently needs to reform the weak regulatory process governing food additives to eliminate conflicts of interest and regulatory loopholes. Please support our efforts to protect our children from exposure to these harmful chemicals. Together we can teach our children to eat nutritious and wholesome foods so they can grow and thrive.
Crazy.
10,000 chemicals in food and food packaging. What are these substances doing to our children?
Crazy. And that's, you know, a lot of different things for people to think about. What are you ingesting? Not only mentally, emotionally, everything else. What are you ingesting? I bet going vegan doesn't sound nearly as bad. I'm going to play for you guys a quick clip as well where we're talking about lead in the water in Detroit. You know, what is going again? You know, who would have thought talking about everything that we see taking place would lead to this? Who would think, you know, talking about Jade Helm 15, UX 16, everything else that's going on would have us literally looking at the drinking water in dozens of Detroit schools and how they're testing positive for, you know, high levels of lead and copper.
I mean, this year our school district found out that there were high levels of lead in about a quarter of our schools. And so as a precautionary measure, the water has been turned off at all the schools.
Hi, good morning faculty and staff and especially students. Welcome to a new school year. It wasn't an easy decision, but it was a decision based on what was best for kids. I think our faculty, our parents understand that, and
the only concern we have this year is about our water system here at Gardner Elementary. We want to make sure that that system be corrected, those pipes be replaced, and I know DPS has the funds to do it, so we should not have waited to the last minute to tell us that there was a problem with our water system. But
I don't understand it. I don't understand why it's still a problem. I don't understand why now they're checking the school system. They should have been done that once the whole Flint thing happened. Everybody should have been checked for lead.
Yeah, you would think.
We'll get a pat on flathead.
Well, what we heard from teachers is that this is just the latest in a long stream of building conditions and issues that they've been dealing with. Teachers.
Now you gotta make sure you turn to your neighbor.
So not ideal, concerning, but at the end of the day, we do now provide water that is safe, and children can drink the water and not think about whether it's going to be harmful to their health, and we can focus on teaching and learning, and that's what we're doing.
Really? Jeepers, that is awesome. Providing clean water? Golly, who would have thought that was a good idea? Like, really? Really? You want a pat on the back for providing children with clean water? Are you serious? You really? Oh, well, there you go. And this is what I talk about. This is the epigenetic epidemic that is taking place that people don't really want to talk about. We could talk about the chemicals in the water turning the frogs gay. We can talk about all this other stuff that's going on. But if we're not covering the basics, you see, all of these other problems boil out. Now, I'm only going to play for you guys one more clip. And this is kind of to follow up on the toxic airplanes that we've been talking about for the past few weeks. You know, how all kinds of people have been apparently getting sick from some kind of something that's going on in the air. You know, we've talked about how air pollution is also making us less intelligent and other stuff, but apparently somebody within the airline industry has come out to talk about how these types of things happen all the time and how people are exposed to toxic air all the time. And again, you know, this just makes me think about what's going on with the bioterrorism, what's going on with our forests, our air quality, what's going on with the environment, and everything else that we find ourselves dealing with. But let's take a listen.
Well, it's an open secret in the airline industry. A flawed design in almost all airplanes is putting flight attendants and pilots at risk. As Susie Steinel discovered, passengers can unknowingly become victims as well.
Yeah, we got a medical issue here. We're going to have to drop into Kansas City.
July 16, 2018. 3:43 p.m. Flight 1097 from Washington Dulles bound for LA makes an emergency landing in Kansas City.
What's the nature of the emergency? We just have sick passengers and a pressurization issue as well.
People were being taken to the hospital. We're calling this Alaska Airlines flight attendant Jane and keeping her identity a secret to protect her from feared retaliation.
My understanding is that the crew felt symptoms of, nausea, itching throat. That's what caused the diversion.
She says contaminated air leaked into the cabin on that diverted flight. And it wasn't the first time. Dozens of coworkers and passengers have recently been sickened by those odors. It's what's known as a fume event, and it's happened on different planes in Alaska's newly acquired Virgin America fleet. They've been sharing their experiences amongst themselves in internal emails, complaining management isn't taking them seriously. But all all are fearful of speaking out.
Anybody who's trying to communicate about these instances, they have been pulled in by the company and threatened with their jobs.
Listen to this audio recording we obtained of a recent Alaska Airlines conference call in which employees are warned to keep all discussion of fumes private.
We have a very strict social media policy. We will investigate those instances where people do not abide by the policy, and the infraction can lead to termination. So please keep that in mind.
The Federal Aviation Administration and the airline industry say so-called fume events are extremely rare, less than 33 per million aircraft departures. But reporting is only required if the airline determines the fume event is linked to an aircraft component problem. Many times airlines determine it's not, which means that not all crew complaints are reported.
For the most part, the traveling public is completely unaware they could be at risk. A recent lawsuit called it the airline's dirty little secret.
And I've known about it for a long time.
Mike Danko is an aviation attorney and pilot himself.
Most studies suggest that we get about 5 fume events per day in the U.S.
The magnificent new jet, with a wing spread that's bigger than the entire distance of the Wright brothers' first flight.
He says toxic cabin air has been a known concern on almost all makes of jet aircraft going back 50 years to the first commercial fleets. In this email from 11 years ago, a Boeing engineer openly discusses it with coworkers, concluding, "I think we're looking for a tombstone before anyone with any horsepower is going to take interest." The source of the contamination, according to Danko, is jet engine oil.
This one is the most popular, most common. It's called 2380.
At extremely high temperatures, all oils used in jet engines give off fumes.
The fumes contain something called organophosphates. And organophosphates are neurotoxins, the same stuff that's used in nerve gas.
And those fumes can affect crew and passengers. Here's how. Nearly all commercial jets bleed fresh air in from the engines. That air is then fed through an air conditioner into the plane. If a seal fails, toxic particles can be released into the cabin. It's described as a dirty sock smell.
We have had cases where at least one pilot was essentially totally incapacitated, and the other pilot, although having difficulties, managed to land the plane. And that is not, that has happened more than a few times, without question.
Well, when we come back, how to
Wow. So a whole lot of different things to look at there. You know, they said they have 5 of those kind of events a day. And the FAA knew. They know. Of course they know. They're complicit. Hey, don't tell anybody about this. As you heard before with that phone call, we have a very, very strict social media policy. They do not want people going and telling people about this, because if you do, it's bad business. It's bad publicity. Don't do that. Shucks. Don't tell people that they're breathing in possibly methane and other possible very bad chemicals as don't tell them that they're breathing in neurotoxins. No. They won't want to come with us. That's crazy. I wonder what else we're not being told. So we'll definitely keep an eye on that. An eye on that. Definitely go check out the full report if you guys want. Really, really powerful stuff. And I just kind of want to end the episode with this. You know, just more stuff for people to think about the context and, again, the times that we are in. So as we're talking about these types of things, you know, 5 of these so-called fume events happening every day, Jeff Bezos is throwing billions at space tourism next year. This is after he's already thrown millions at the homeless. Remember that? He gave millions of dollars, donated millions of dollars to the homeless and children, potentially future workers of his. You see? But what I also find strange is how it seems like every single time we hear about, you know, the Space Force or something space, you know, Donald Trump always comes out talking about a Space Force. What I'm trying to say is the secret space program is very real. The military-industrial complex, the breakaway civilization, all this stuff, the disclosure, it's very real. All the things you see happening, quite strange. I really would believe it. You know, we just we played the other day. We played the clip for you guys of Elon Musk's interview on Joe Rogan's podcast. He made a lot of revealing statements in regards to the type of work that he's up to, and as well as the mindset of the elites when it comes to AI and everything else. But getting into this article from Judge Report feed, we put this up September 20th. It says Jeff Bezos will invest just over $1 billion next year in Blue Origin's New Glenn rocket program, and the company will fly people to space, quote, this coming year. The Amazon.com Inc. chief executive said on Wednesday, speaking during a keynote address at the Air Force Association's Airspace and Cyber Conference in National Harbor. Bezos said a team of big people are working on the rocket's development. The Kent, Washington company has said that the rocket will be available in two and 3-stage variations and has already netted several commercial satellite launch orders. The rocket's BE-4 engine test program is also going very well, said Bezos. The engine, which will be propelled by liquefied natural gas and liquid oxygen, is being considered for use in the first stage of next-generation Vulcan Centaur rocket development, a rocket under development by a joint venture of Lockheed Martin Corp. and Boeing, known as United Launch Alliance. Analysts have said New Glenn could compete with the likes of Hawthorne-based SpaceX and ULA for national security launch contracts, as well as commercial orders. Blue Origin opened a 650,000 square foot manufacturing facility in Florida and has been constructing its launch pad at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. The two represent a total investment of about $1 billion, Bezos said on Wednesday. In addition to the satellite launch contracts, Blue Origin expects to generate revenue through space tourism with its new Shepard launch vehicle and crew capsule. Will be putting people in space this coming year. The company has also conducted a number of tests of the system, though ticket price for the suborbital flight have not been announced. Now, that's interesting. You have Flint over here unable to get clean water, or finally getting clean water. Toxic air pollution making us sick, all kinds of other environmental issues and things like this going on. But don't worry, Jeff Bezos is going to take us to space. Elon Musk said he's going to try to land people on the moon. He's going to try to slingshot people with his rockets around the moon. Think they'll see bases over there? Who knows? Who knows? Last clip I'm going to play for you guys, and then we'll cut this episode out, is the Impossible Burger. You have people creating just that, plant-based burgers. You know, we're talking about it all the time, and with everything going on, does it sound so bad?
Oh, I know what you guys did. Is this a vegan burger? Yo, it's good.
The Impossible Slider. All right, for our audio listeners, I'll narrate it.
It's delicious. It tastes like a real burger. It's a vegan burger, isn't it?
It's not bad. What's in it?
What's in it?
It's made with wheat, protein, oil protein. I can't read what the other one says. Heme is a flavor catalyst and the secret ingredient that they use. It's what gives the meat its flavor and smell. The fatty texture and the mouthful. Num 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 num. It all comes together, produced on a meatless patty. It's nearly indistinguishable from a regular burger. Wow. Yeah, basically, so I can stop butchering all this. What we're playing for audio listeners right now is a vegan burger. You know, we're seeing that take over. People saying I could go vegetarian if this is what it is. You know, as I've talked about with Jesse of Vegan Takeover. You know, with the vegan tacos and with other vegan guests we've had on. I would be open to it. You know, I'm aware of the steroids, the chemicals, and everything else that they're putting in the food, the water, the animals, how this stuff all bioaccumulates, this, that, and the third. We need to start coming up with alternatives. Like I said, you have Jeff Bezos and all these other rich people trying to get off of this planet. And that leaves us here to deal with these types of things, the problems that these people create and that they try to push on to us. You've got to understand, if we don't start getting our heads in the game and realizing the threat that we're under and how everything seems fine right now, it's the process of change. and that we have to go through these periods of change to undergo growth. But people have to understand it's much more than that. What is the cost of Trump's Space Force? It's our future. If we let it. This is what happens if we give out our life, all of our power. If we abdicate our power to other people, we have control, and we have to start making decisions today. So you could talk about Bill Cosby getting 3 to 10 years, but what about every other sexual predator out there? We could talk about all this nonsense, but we have to understand what is going on. Didn't even talk about how China, think about this here. Just think about this. I'm not even going to pull the article up, okay? The Vatican has abandoned 12 million Chinese Catholics as it announces its historic deal with the communist government. So while we're over here talking about China destroying churches, burning buildings, burning Bibles up, destroying graveyards, all this other stuff, the Vatican's like, you know what? We will sit down with you and we will go over which bishops you are allowed to have. This is what I mean by religion. Things are getting crazy. But that's why we have to understand that this system wants us to act one way, and the more we play into it, the more power they have. We have to start figuring out solutions yesterday. However, that's all I really have for you guys. This is Revolution, Collusion, Scoring Society, and Fiascos of Our Future. Crazy. I think it's kind of crazy to think about all the things we have to deal with on the daily. If you think about it, and this is something I want you guys to do, right? Did you know that you could download the show notes? That's half of what makes the show. The content and the things that we go over, it's just a way for you guys to follow along, you know. And if this stuff helped you, if you saw something beneficial to the work that we put out, show a friend, talk to someone. Understand that we'll try to be putting out this content. We'll try to do as much as we can for as long as we can until they take us off. And like I keep telling you guys, there's updates coming your way. I hope you're paying attention, because we most certainly are. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. I'll have it in the description bar below. And as always, guys and gals, stay vigilant. Expose lies and share truth. This is Noise Era, Freedom Faction, out.